All right, everybody. We got another very special guest, returning special guest, Stewart Kenneth Moore. Welcome back, Stewart.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure.
Not many people put us on their hardcover book with quotes and such. So you have a free spot. I mean, if you want the show, we'll just give you the show at this point. But
I'll need to put more quotes about you in future things and make sure I keep coming back.
It's an easy way to sell 2 copies.
Yeah, it really
Double
is.
My earnings.
Yeah,
Double my earnings.
And for our newer viewers and listeners, I mean, MK Ultra. Oh, there we go. Volume 1 and 2. Volume 1 and 2. That's what we had you on originally, and that was a few years ago, Stewart. Now I'm thinking about it. But I mean, I think a lot has happened since then. We're going to talk about Macbeth today.
Okay.
But I mean, you said you're doing comics, you're doing covers for 2000 AD. We were just talking about that before we started recording, and I was like, okay, maybe we should record. So I want to ask about that, because your style, we talked about, and like the painting behind you, you're doing oil paintings. Yeah. How does that? I mean, it's probably a simple answer from you, but like, how does that get transferred to a comic cover? Do you need like a really high definition scan of like a painting that you're doing, or how does that work?
Well, one of the things that drove me to go back to oils, like the painting you see behind me here, done before I went back into comics. So I was really doing figurative painting at the time. And like I said before we recorded it, just by coincidence, by luck, it ended up in this film, which is now considered a Czech classic. But the comic thing, I noticed that Brian Bolland, I saw an interview with Brian Bolland and Dave Gibbons. There was a web page. I think it's been wiped from the internet, but it used to be able to go to this web page, and Dave Gibbons and Brian Bolland would talk about how they'd started doing their art digitally. Mm-hmm. So initially what I wanted to do was paint, like you see behind me, paint a comic like that. Yeah. And I think that would be awesome, So I've written to everybody. I've written to publishers at DC. I don't think I've approached anybody at Marvel, but I've approached various people saying, how about an oil painted comic? I'll do a whole comic like that.
Right.
And there's no answer from it. Nobody gets back to me about it. It's just nobody cares, I guess. And also maybe that's a good thing, because it's a lot of work, and it's harder than a simple comic or a painted comic. Yeah. But if you think about it, you see the work of somebody like
Liam Sharp is probably similar.
Liam Sharp, I'm thinking of what's his name?
Alex Ross.
Corbin or Alex Ross.
Yeah.
Great example.
Yeah.
So there's a fantastic artist who's using, modern, full-on painting techniques like but he's doing fantastic light effects and all that kind of stuff, which is very unique to him. But Richard Corbin was the guy I was thinking.
Richard Corbin,
which I love, because Corbin's kind of highly realistic, but it's also cartoonish. So it's got a weird feel. I love that stuff most of all. So anyway, I've always thought somebody would take me up on this, but nobody has. But then with the rise of sort of AI, I've moved, to cut a long story short, I've moved into doing digital work, by looking at, what Gibbons and Bond were doing with those tuts that they put up on the web. I realized do it digitally, and it's easier because you can just send it, you can compress it, you can send it, you can, if your editor asks for a change, you can fix it, easy. But now with the whole AI thing, I'm kind of sick of the digital thing. So I've been trying to make efforts to be more traditional, use traditional media, but it is a pain in the ass. For example, the painting behind me, not this one, the one you can't quite see that's on the easel behind me here.
Yeah.
And I can't show it because it's this new double wraparound Judge Dredd for 2000 AD. But I can't show it. Well, I can't see a wee bit yet, so I've got to hide that.
There you go. We got to see it, but we can't show it to everybody else.
They've got the fans have got away or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, or I'll get shot in the face. But
by Judge Dredd.
Yeah, by my alien editor who'll kill me. But anyway, so that's oils, but I only have like an A4 scanner, so I scan that canvas, and it's like a meter across. So it took ages to scan, and then I'm doing stitching. I'm stitching all the scans together. Before you know it, you're actually digitally reworking the picture. So it's like, why did I do any of this?
It's a lot more work. Yeah, for sure.
What kills me is we brought up Alex Ross in that conversation, And I think every comic fan has either read the Marvels or Kingdom Come, and they're both at each respective publisher considered top tier comics. So like to do something in a traditional painted style, whether I know it's different oils to what he does, but immediately when you said that, I was just like, that'd be a selling point right there. Like if somebody came out and said an oil painted comic, I'd be like, that's unique and different, and it could be really cool, especially with how realistic you get with some of your oil paintings. I'm sure you will painstakingly kill yourself over that time period, but I will enjoy the hell out of that comic.
Yeah, I'll read the comic and be like, damn, that was really...
You will enjoy me being hoisted by my own petard, right? But, you know, but the thing is, I don't like to say it, but I mean, it's like nobody, at a certain level, no one really wants to see it or care about it or whatever. And it really drives me crazy because people like Alex Ross are proving the point.
Right.
And Richard Corbin proves the point. And any number of other people who've gone in that direction. And it's not like I can't do it. You know, there's the evidence.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I feel like with some of these publishers, it's like if you don't do exactly what you're going to do, they're not gonna entertain it. Which means you've essentially got to do it for them to see that you can do it. It's ridiculous. So I would have to make some kind of incredible, if it was Batman or Superman or the Hulk or something, I'd have to paint all these things in a really complex way, which would be wonderful. I'd love to take the time and do it, but that's going to take me a week.
Right.
You know, paying the bills that week.
Exactly. You know?
Yeah. I'm going to paint. I'm going to do the commissioned work. I'm going to do the pages that I'm being paid to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pitch at the same time. Look, I can do this. I can do these kind of comics, but painted like this. And, you know, so, but yeah, you just a flat, you don't hear anything. It's like tumbleweed, nothing happening, you know?
Well, I'm surprised not even, I mean, you said you're doing covers for 2000 AD. Have you been doing any other cover work, or is that pretty much it just for them?
Yeah, it's mostly 2000 AD, but I've had quite a few. Like I've got 3 covers in the can right now. So I don't know when they come out, but they're in the, you know, they're with 2000 AD and they've been approved and paid for and done ages ago. And when they come out, if they come out rapidly, then people are going to think, God, that guy's getting loads of work. But it's like, that was done. They were done ages ago. You know, the one I showed you was done in the summer. And, you know, so, but it's great. I love working for 2000 AD. They're just fantastic. And I grew up, I don't say that, I'm not like kind of trying to brown nose or whatever. I really love them because I grew up, that was my comic when I was a boy.
Right.
You know? So I don't know what your first real comic, whatever the real comic was that grabbed you when you were a kid, you can do it now, or at least contribute in some small way. That to me is fantastic. You know. Yep.
No, I agree. Heroes for hire for me.
Heroes for hire. So it's like that. So if you
on a spinner rack in a airport, you can't find a comic book in an airport anymore. That's not how that works.
Or a spinner rack.
Or a spinner rack. Yeah, those are things of the past.
You know, I get nostalgic for an era that I never even saw, and it's when I see these pictures of old newsstands from America from the 40s, and you just see it's like thousands of comic books. Yeah, you've never heard of them, you know. Yeah, and they're also, and many of them are like, they're obviously quite mad, you know, like brilliant. So that era's gone, unfortunately, but we've got this other era now with the stores, and you get these great things coming out, great comic books. I've had an experience since I last met you guys on this show, and we went to Milan, my wife and I.
Oh, nice.
And and one of the reasons was to see this this Codex Atlanticus by Leonardo da Vinci, and it's the famous drawings of various things he'd invented. And so we went to visit that, and it was just a wonderful trip. But this wonderful byproduct of the trip was that we discovered there was so many comic book stores in Milan. Really? There's like, as soon as we got in, we came off the train, or I don't know how we got into the city from the airport, but we passed a newsagent, and just stacks of comics.
Really?
Just in the place you'd go like to buy your, I don't know, your chewing gum. There's like a whole bunch of, and I thought, well, that bodes well. You know, if it's just a place like this, who knows what their comic stores are like? And I looked them up online because we stumbled on 2 comic stores. And it turns out there's something like 26 comic stores or something like that in Milan.
Wow.
In Milan alone. And
that's amazing.
And it's crazy. You go in, of course, they've got, you know, all the ones we know, but they've also got like tons of titles you've never even heard of. Titles that are never published in English. They're just produced for the Italian market.
Right.
Just
Right.
incredible.
Yeah.
So are they all in Italian?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
other thing is they do have this kind of, so they had things like Batman and stuff, but they're translated into Italian. But they don't tend to bring in books and translate them. They do a lot of homegrown books, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all titles that are really tempting. You want to buy them just to absorb them because,
Right.
you know, I wouldn't know what the hell was going on, but I just want to have them, you know.
It just looks cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you can just tell they're great little stories, and they're very personal, and they're
Mm-hmm.
you know, like of life, and just it's great. So
That's amazing.
Yeah,
highly
I've been doing reading on French and English comics because it's such a blind spot for me in my comic
Mhm.
reading.
Mm-hmm.
And because years ago, you were probably well aware of this, but that movie Valerian came out,
Oh yeah.
and it was whatever. But
Yeah,
it introduced me to the comic, which I believe is a French comic.
it is.
And I bought the first volume and I read it, and I was like, this is really good.
Yeah,
And recently I got back in that bug of like, because I've been getting back in the manga,
right.
and I've obviously always loved American comics. I was like, I need to expand. And
Yeah.
actually 2000 AD Judge Dredd in particular is one that I want to like
Great.
really dive deep into and see, like, there's got to be something here, because you
Yeah, oh, there is.
you all love
Yeah.
it over
Oh, yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great. They're great. You got to bear in mind with Dread that what you're dealing with is a kind of satire. You know,
Mhm.
it's a heroic thing, but it's a satire, and also your moral compass comes into play here and there because sometimes he's not such a good guy. You know, he's
Right.
he's unwavering with what he decides, but that doesn't mean you agree with what he did. Other times he's clearly the hero in the story. So it's great fun, very funny if you think about it from a kind of ironic point of view.
Mhm.
But I was the opposite because I did have some experience with American comics growing up because I was born actually in Los Angeles, and spent a few years in America before my family settled back in Scotland. So I did have some experience in American comics. But my big experience with comics came from first with 2000 AD and then trying to find more stuff like that, and then realizing there was all this wonderful Franco-Belgian science fiction. So so Valerian's a really good example. And I don't know if you've seen me ranting. I don't rant that often these days, but I don't have the energy. But you know, Valerian was a big part of what became Star Wars, and it's never really, it never gets the credit for that. But I think his name's Jean-Michel Mézières was the artist. That's his last name. I forget his first name. But Mézières, he was the artist, and so much of what he did was just folded into Star Wars. And same with Mobius, but Mobius is slightly different in that he did work for the film industry, so you can kind of start wondering where that begins and ends. But Mézières and all his stuff's part of Star Wars. There's I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures, but I first saw them when Dave Gibbons posted them, and there's side by side images of various Mézières images from Valerian and images from Star Wars, and it's just one for one.
Really?
And Valerian was drawn in 1972.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, when I was reading about it, and I want to dive deeper into that series because I only bought the first volume, but I read that Lucas read those and like really loved them. So that was one of the inspirations, on top of obviously like Flash Gordon and some other stuff. But another one that a lot of people don't know is the director of that movie is the same director as The Fifth Element.
Oh yeah,
one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way.
Yeah.
And The Fifth Element was him trying to do Valerian because he's like, they'll never do a Valerian movie.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So that movie is strongly inspired by that comic as well.
Of course, with the taxi cars and stuff like that. That's straight out of Mézières, those taxis.
Yeah.
And but when I went to see Fifth Element, and I adore that film, we went to see it, and I kept saying to my wife, "This is like amazing. This is like this artist that I love. This is just like Mobius, And in the credits it says concept artist Mobius, or Jean Giraud. So he's credited in there. But so he did work on it. But last night there's a great cinema here in Prague called Kino Aero, and right now they've got like a kind of science fiction thing on. Actually, no, that's coming up. But I don't know really what the theme is right now. But like last night we went to see Baron Munchausen at Aero. After Baron Munchausen, it was Fifth Element. and I was tempted to stay and watch Fifth Element in the cinema.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
It's so
but it was
good.
totally sold out. It was totally sold out. You couldn't get tickets. So that
Really?
Was, you
Oh,
you
man.
couldn't get.
Yeah.
But I love Fifth Element. And did you know that there was a bit of a stushy about that with Alejandro Jodorowsky sued Luc Besson for Fifth Element because there was still these elements that had come from Jodorowsky's books from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Besson had these things folded in but it gets really ridiculous, the Stushy, because he had Mobius as a concept artist, and Mobius was Jodorowsky's artist on those books. So it was, in the end, they had to just kind of say, well, Mobius, actually, it's Mobius' fault.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's the one that did the concept. So that's really interesting. Yeah, you can find a lot of the influence too when you go back and watch movies like from the 50s, like Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, I love that movie.
For sure, Lucas watched that movie at one point and was like, I think I could take some of these shots and put them
yes.
Like a lot of that environment. Yeah,
the environment in that movie is particularly great because those are matte paintings, which they don't do anymore, but they used to shoot through glass.
Yep.
And in that film, Forbidden Planet, is a fantastic example of matte paintings.
Yeah.
With the scenes where they're walking through the underground passages in Mars.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it Mars? I think it's Mars. Whatever planet they're on.
One of them. Yeah.
Planet, and you see these wonderful things happening. And the thing with matte paintings was you're only meant to hold a matte painting for a split second, because the imagination, the human imagination breaks it and realizes it's painting.
Right.
So it can only be up for a second or two. And but they were so good, they managed to hold them for quite a long time.
And make the lights play off of them and stuff.
I love that film. It's just such a classic.
It's great. So let's. I mean,
some movies to watch when we're done with this.
Yeah, I can talk time, dude. So Stewart, you said you did bring up a point though. You're like, I could rant and get all worked up about these things, and I believe that over a few years ago when we talked to you, you were very, I would say, more like about MK Ultra. You were like, really, I don't know, like sticking it to the man kind of thing, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. But I will say now, like talking to you now, it seems like you've just absorbed so much more, and you're kind of just like you're just taking it all in, and just kind of where you're at. And it's interesting talking to you now. It's almost like a different person, but it's awesome.
Maybe it's a different person. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. No, I think it's great, and to see you doing this now. But let's talk Macbeth. I mean, that's why we're here, right? I want to promote you as much as we can.
Okay.
And so the tragedy of Macbeth, the graphic novel. When did you decide to take this on? There it is, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, this is so I did this initially as a personal project. I do a bit of acting.
Okay.
Not much, small A, not big A.
Yeah.
But I don't do like the background stuff. I do act, so if I'm in something, then I usually have lines of some kind, but I don't usually have very big parts. But and that's fine. That's actually really cool. But I know a bunch of actors here because of this in Prague, and they had been putting on all these Shakespeare plays, and in particular this one, Macbeth. And in this one year, they asked me to take part in some stage productions that they were doing. It was the 400th anniversary of the death of Shakespeare, and they were going to be putting on pretty much everything that he had written. And the company's called Prague Shakespeare Company, and they're fantastic. And but I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I would be any good as a stage actor. And also, I think it's really, really committed work. And I didn't see how it could fit in with my work as an artist, and I'm primarily a visual artist. But I thought, maybe I could draw, study the actors at work and draw it. So I set about trying to do this as a 7-day project. I try and draw a comic book, a graphic novel in 7 days.
160-page graphic novel?
2 years later.
Almost. But no, what happened was I realized, I haven't done that, but I've managed to do something like 40 pages, or 30 pages in a week. So maybe if I just keep going, maybe I got 28 days in and I was done. So I did it in 28 days.
Wow.
And I was averaging about 3 or 4 pages a day, but there were days I hit 6 pages. and I would think about Jack Kirby, you know, like how he had an astonishing page rate like that.
Right.
But and I still don't know how, but he was just a machine, an amazing artist. But so yeah, absolutely. And and at the end of the month, I was an absolute wreck. You know, I looked like one of the witches by the end of it. I was all like greasy and ruined. I don't think I'd bathed in days and whatever. But anyway, I got it done, and then I self-published and sold it around Prague, and I sold about 120 of them. Wow. And so I paid for them. You know, the big problem with comics, as we were talking about with the painted artwork behind me, is that if you don't have someone paying your page rate, then it's all coming out of your ass. You know, how you make that comic book. And so that's why you go around saying, hey, you know, I could paint a comic, I could do this, put some and that. Because, you know, you can't afford to sit about and just do it. So, but with this one, I figured out the style, which was really simple, which had no shading, and it just involved like cutouts. It's really fast cutouts, like slash, make a face, you know. And I didn't even plan it. Like with MK Ultra, I plotted it. So the first month on MK Ultra was just me doing a doodle book, which was the whole book, but in doodles with all the words scrambled in every panel. But that took a month. But this, I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it. See what happens. How many pages I can find out at the end. So got that done, and then it was out, and then I did a Create Space one with Amazon, which was a POD, so it's publish on demand. So if you wanted it, you could buy it on Amazon, and they would print one and send you. And that was pretty good. And then, but then Clover really liked it and said they'd like to publish it officially. So I took the POD one down, and we, you know, repackaged, and we put the complete Shakespeare text in the book. So now you can read the this version that I've done on the Czech stage, and then at the back you can actually refer to the complete original Shakespeare text if you want to play on it. You know?
I think it is a beautiful book the way you did the black and white.
Thank you.
And the cover too. And I will say to everybody, it is on Clover Press website. It's also on sale right now for less than $20. So
it's a good deal.
Cheaper than the Amazon price, by the way.
Yeah. So, and also supporting Clover Press is where it's at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about I've told you a bit about how it came about, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, and then I'll tell you about the sort of darker side of it, which I sort of talked about.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear about, just because I mean, myself, I'm not a huge Shakespeare fan, and I don't know much about Macbeth, so I'd like to hear that side of it too.
So I decided to, you know, draw the actors who were performing the plays, and then the play, and but then I decided to draw them against what I remembered of Scotland. So I grew up in the northeast. I'm a family from Glasgow, but spent a lot of time up in the northeast of Scotland, and about maybe 20 miles from what would be the demarcation point to the Highlands, just below what would be the Highlands, and it's really Macbeth country, and so I tried to imagine those things without really looking them up. Those places I'd been, places I'd gone on hill walks, this kind of thing. And so I set the actors against that. So that's how it's got kind of a memoirish kind of quality to it as well. But as for the history of the play, it's really quite interesting, because in the story, Macbeth and Banquo meet the witches, and the witches tell Macbeth that he'll be king, but he won't sire any kings. He won't have any children who become king. But Banquo won't become king, but he will have children who will become king. So this leads to a kind of power thing where Macbeth tries to get rid of Banquo and get rid of his son, so he won't be a threat to his future lineage. And he does the same with Macduff. And he seeks the company of the witches and asks for various, you know, he asks them for more insight into the future. And so they give him these prophecies. And what's interesting about the Banquo thing is that at the time that Shakespeare was writing the play, there was a Scottish king on the English throne. He was the first of the Stewart line, and he sort of united the kingdoms under the crown. So he was James VI of Scotland, became James I of England, and he wrote a book called Demonologia, or Demonology.
Mm-hmm.
He also is the guy behind the King James version of the Bible. So what's kind of interesting about that is that I think the witch burnings that kicked off then were really a propaganda exercise to sort of sell him as a good Christian king to the English public, who might be suspicious of the fact that he was Scottish.
Yeah, right.
I think because there's this famous booklet called The News from Scotland, and you can get a little bit of it in the back of Macbeth. I put some details in there so you can look it up if you want. And News from Scotland was this like what was called a chapbook. It's kind of like a proto comic book, little drawings and various things, and it was all about the witchcraft trials in Berwick. And the reason there were witchcraft trials was that people had seen witches standing on the coast trying to cast a spell to make a storm as the king's wife was coming across in a boat from Denmark. So she rowed into it. They went into storm, and the accusation was that the witches were trying to sink the ship that carried the queen, or the queen to be, and so the trials kick off, and they tell the king that this has been the case, and the king's doubtful. He seems to throw cold water on this idea that they had tried to sink her ship, storm, and he says, well, if you're in touch with Satan, he says to one of the witches, tell me in my ear what my wife said to me on my wedding night. And so the witch comes up and says this thing in his ear, and oh my God, he says, that's exactly what my wife said, and so on. So he believes at that point. So to me, that's just a very cynical exercise to sort of show that he's a fool. He's not going to easily fall for this.
Yeah.
But it's so convincing, we just have to set fire to all these people now, you know.
Right. Yeah, we just have to burn everyone.
Yeah. Just have to kill them all.
Yeah.
So I think that was I think the whole thing rests on that. The other thing that's odd is that the king was almost certainly gay. So it wasn't bad enough he was Scottish, he was gay and Scottish. So.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So he had to find another group to terrorize.
Yeah.
To get the heat off him.
Yeah, because it's quite clear, and if you read his letters, and I've looked at it, quite clear that he's quite open about it among the people in the palace.
Yep.
And that would have got out, and so there was a number of reasons to reinforce the idea that he was a good example of a Christian king, and not first a suspicious Scot, and second possibly with Catholic inclinations, because there's this whole thing about Catholic Protestantism that was going on at that time as well. And then, of course, there's the added thing of, something that was a crime probably punishable by death, then being a homosexual. So it's quite interesting. So anyway, Shakespeare has built into the play this whole thing with Banquo, because King James the First laid claim to be of that line, the line of Banquo. So when you read the play and you see the witches are saying, you'll have a line of kings, that's Shakespeare's way of saying, I'm not talking about that Scottish king.
Right.
This is Macbeth. He's another Scottish king, and he's in a different line entirely.
Right.
So, and that line dies out, and we go with Banquo. And so and I think he did that also for a few reasons. One was that I think King James I was also the sort of patron of Shakespeare. I think his company was called the King's Men, and I think he was the chief patron of them. So, but anyway, that's just the darkest side, I think, of it. That they just generated this hysteria and scapegoating.
Yeah,
and yeah,
I think I didn't really know that about Scotland itself, though. Does it have a history of like witchcraft, witch trials, and everything like that?
Yeah, in Aberdeen, I think I'm right in saying that on King Street in Aberdeen, they burned 500 women.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And
I was say, being Americans, we always hear about the Salem witch trials.
Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
And I was at a book signing tonight, and someone made a guy actually from Colorado made a very good point about Salem, saying that because they joked about, well, you've done this book about MK Ultra and LSD. Is there any connection with LSD with Macbeth. Like I'd be obsessed. Like I'm obsessed with LSD or something, which I'm not. And I never took it or never fan of that kind of thing. I said, it's funny you should say that, because there was a line in Macbeth about, have you taken, I don't know who it is that says it, I think it might be Lady Macbeth may say it in frustration to Macbeth himself. Have you lost your senses?
Right.
Have you taken of the root that causes men to lose their minds? I'm mangling the text, but that's basically it. You've eaten of the root. This root, and LSD comes from ergo, which grows. It's a fungus that grows underneath the underside of like wheat. So, and then this chap from Colorado said, the reason I asked, is it possible that there's a connection throughout the book, because there's some theory that the Salem witches, there was some kind of poisoning involved in their trial, that they were tried partly on something that had happened due to them having been poisoned by a similar kind of psilocybin or something like the fungus, like an ergo fungus. Because you can people have had LSD experiences essentially way back in history, like eating rotten vegetables. And
not realizing it. Yeah.
I was gonna say, there's theories. I've gone down a rabbit hole recently of like biblical theory, and there's theories that like Moses was dealing with psilocybin and some other drugs that may have actually had him see these images that seem magical to us, but when you're tripping balls, you're like, oh yeah, that bush is on fire.
That bush said something to me.
It's on fire. Oh my god. Yeah, it spoke to me. Yeah, I think that's interesting too. I would say like Salem, and I mean, being on the coast in Scotland, there would be, I would say, similar climates. I don't know how much truth there is to that, as far as like
similar lineage of people. I mean,
you're
talking about British people,
right? Exactly.
Definitely. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. So it wouldn't surprise me. None of that would. And the Moses stuff's very interesting, because there's a whole bunch of stuff about Moses that's just like fascinating, and that a lot of people don't sort of realize, because I think you kind of absorb stuff about Moses, but then you get on with the rest of the Bible.
Right.
But he goes up Sinai to basically speak to God and get these tablets.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but in the old folk tales, Jewish folk tales, the tablets were blue and glass-like. So they weren't rock. They were in the folk tales, not in the text, but in the folk tales, they were blue glass.
Interesting.
And Sinai Peninsula had a lot of glass smelting going on there.
Okay.
And if you look at Egyptian glass at that time, it's blue because they couldn't get the impurities out of it. So it leads to the idea that he just went and made and forged.
Sorry, Breaking Bad came to my head because they got the impurities out of the meth, made it blue. Sorry,
guys, you can eat the tablets too. Smoke them, smoke the tablets. It'd be great.
We can make a biblical joke out of that, because what's the line? Say my name.
Yeah.
Right? Say my name.
Right. Say my name. Yeah.
But that basically happens when he speaks to the bush, because he said he asked the bush. He demands the name of the bush, and the bush flips it around and demands his name.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, it used to be that they believed that if you had the name of God, you could control the God.
Right, you could control it. Yeah.
So Moses was so high that day, he was like, what's your name? And the bush is, my name, Moses.
Yeah.
So saying it, control over
That's
him.
amazing. He just comes down from the mountain like, guys, these tablets were here. Yeah. My hands are dirty from chiseling all day, but
exactly.
I just think about the Israelites back then who were like just so down with everything that was going on, because he's just like, I got these tablets, dude. A bush was on fire. It talked to me.
Like,
and this is what it said, dudes. Like, let's do it. Let's go across this river. Like,
let's go.
Everybody's just like, let's do it.
Yeah, right. And it's even crazier because there's these long time periods. Like he kills. Does he kill the guard and then flees for like 40 years and then comes back and then leads the Israelites into the desert for 40 other years?
Yeah.
It's like 80 years. Those long time periods.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I read about this stuff years and years ago, and apparently somebody was saying to somebody in the desert, a Bedouin, Moses would take the staff and he would hit the earth, and the power of God, water would come up, and the Bedouin took a staff and cracked the earth, and the water came up. He said, "This is what we do for water. We know where the water is. We just have to crack it a certain way at a certain way." So it's like local knowledge.
Yeah, it's my grand does it to get it some water at night.
Yeah, exactly. Like such a squelch.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, in a desert scenario, like that's not far off.
Right.
Like they know to crack into the cacti, and get water, and they know like where there's underground wells and everything like that. Like
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject, but I saw a really interesting thing about the Bible, and it showed you a ring around the region. Like it's everything that ever takes place in the Bible takes place within this ring, and it's not much bigger than Israel itself.
Wow.
So that's the entirety of the biblical world.
And I guess for me, I never realized the relation of Shakespeare to King James. That's news to me as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating because to me that's a very, very big risk to take. To write and insinuate that this guy is utterly evil and Scottish.
Yeah.
While there's a Scottish king and he's your patron.
Right. Yeah. And he's paying you.
Yeah.
To do that.
And so that was very, very interesting itself. But I think not long after that, theatres were banned or something in England. I think it went into a period of I may be with this, but I think it went into a period of like really extreme sort of theocracy, and wouldn't allow anything like that. So I think there was a period when all the theatres shut.
And
to cut you off, Mike. I think from American perspective too, what's interesting is that we're shown Shakespearean plays in like high school and some in middle school, and usually we're, myself included, like I'm not above this, we're all just like, what's this crazy kind of English thing that we're reading?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it wasn't until later in life when I kind of rediscovered some of it and was kind of like, oh, this is the basis of all story.
Yeah.
Like, I know he didn't create story. I get that. But he's the earliest English speaking that we know of that kind of created the basis that all stories come from.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so important.
Yeah, and also so much of the language that we use every day is actually Shakespeare's language, words he invented that only he ever used, and they've just become second nature to us.
And it gets shit on a lot.
Yeah,
but like I really recommend to people. There's a version of Romeo and Juliet that DiCaprio starred in, where they tried to do like a modern version, but with the classic English, and it's very interesting how they how they do it.
Yeah, I like.
And Paul Rudd's in that movie, by the way, everybody.
Paul Rudd. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was in there, but I remember this other actor who's actually since passed away. He's a brilliant actor, English guy. I remember he had a big like tattoo or something on his back. But that was a great film.
I love that movie.
I liked that film, but that's one thing I tried to do with the book, which was I tried to draw it in such a way that the text, you didn't have to rely on the text, that the pictures could you understand what the text meant. So in Shakespeare, you got iambic pentameter. So I didn't pay attention to that at all, which probably would be appalling to Shakespearean scholars. But what I was trying to do was like break the words down into simple bite-sized bits per panel, and then focus the panel on those things that those bits referred to, so that the reader who might not know old Shakespearean language understand it better.
It is
the images.
It's amazing to me how expressive, because for anybody wondering, you can go on Clover Press's website to see some preview pages, how expressive you can make the faces with just black and white art.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Chris. Pulling it up right now.
I was going to say, I was looking at these, and what I love about them is that after reading MK Ultra from you, and I recently reread it, and then seeing this, exact opposites. Like MK Ultra is just such a colorful psychedelic thing, and this is such a muted black and white book with so much emotion in each page. It's
lots of emotion.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I try and do that every time with my books. That's another reason why I'm trying to push for a painted comic right now, because I want to move into another style. I want to do I would like to do every book that in a way that would look different. It would look like a different style.
I mean, seeing this, I would love to see you on a horror book.
Oh yeah.
I would. I mean, and when you talk about your art and the paintings behind you, I mean, people go to YouTube and look at some of this stuff we're looking at right now. But I would like. I can't see why you can't be on Hellblazer right now or something. Like even from
I would love
DC
to do
or something like that. But because like you said, like Chris said, MK Ultra was amazing in itself and such a completely different end of the spectrum of this. But you do show off the expression of the character so well with just black.
Thank you.
And it's crazy how you do that.
One of the reasons for that again was because I knew it was going to be self-publishing, and I thought I'd be printing them on old Xerox copiers that didn't maybe write the right amount of toner in, So
right.
So I thought I'd be doing that, kind of running around doing that with like the kind of zine kind of thing.
Yep.
So I couldn't get too fine. It had to be really, really simple. And so there's a real cut-out style. The other thing that affects the style is I had images. I was working from real people. Only some of the characters are based on real people in MK Ultra, but most of them are, I made them up. But these characters are mostly real actors. If you go to the back of the book, I've actually dedicated the last page to like the various actors in the play, and I've put the drawings up next to their real names. So King Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, and so on and so forth. Then since this is just as a site, just as a thing, since the book was drawn, both the actors that play King Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they've got roles in Wheel of Time. They pop up in in Wheel of Time. They're both prominent.
Oh.
Yeah, they're very good. And
I will admit, Stuart, I did not know you were an actor. I never punched your name into IMDb, but I did see you pop up for Wheel of Time. So you had a spot in that as well, right?
I popped up all right. Up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can talk about it now, but my head explodes. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude, I was gonna get into the show, so I'm gonna watch out for you now. That's amazing.
It'll entertain anybody who ever hated me. But
how do you agree to that? Where you said, "Hey, you want to be on the Wheel of Time? Your head just has to blow up."
That's pretty much what happened. I get called. I get called because I can ride a horse. So they couldn't find somebody who could ride a horse and say lines. So they get stunt. It loads of stuntmen that could ride the horse, right? But they don't have anybody that can actually say a line on horseback.
Wow.
And so they called me and said, you want to do it, but your head explodes. I said, that's fine. And and I said, that's fine. And then so I had to do an audition anyway.
Yeah.
But they also liked it. And then I'm only in it a bit, but it took like 5 days. Wow. Because to go get costume and all that stuff worked out. And then the nicest thing about it was that I'd been in COVID quarantine for so long, and I'm quite happy working inside and being on my own and all that, but I hadn't really been out in the country much or anything. Right. And the night we shot this scene, I had to go out into the woods and ride a black horse in the cold air, and it just felt so cool. Yeah, it was fantastic. So, but then after the shoot, then I had to go to a special effects place and stand on a box, and they had about 250 cameras around me.
Oh, for the CGI.
Yeah, because then somebody was going to recreate my head and then blow. and then on the night when we shot it on the night, we shot the whole scene, and then a stuntman gets on the horse, and I think he had like a green hood or something, so his head would be green.
Oh yeah.
Something like that, anyway, and then he fell off the horse, and but on the ground there was just like big pile of brains, and I said to the first AD, I don't think my wife would have expected there would be that much brains coming out of my head, but that was great fun, and
oh my god, that's amazing. Yeah. That's awesome.
So what I found funny going into your IMDb now, since Mike had to bring it up, is first, you did a voice in Kingdom Come Deliverance, which makes me want to play that game even more.
Yeah,
but Mike, did you see what his character name was in Wheel of Time?
Older man. Yeah, I love it.
It's terrible because you get these things happening. You get at some point you realize you're older man roles, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's funny. And I've had roles. I had one student picture I did, and one of the student actors was saying, "I've got a thing coming up. I'd love you to play the part, and I'll send you the script if you'd be interested in doing it." And I said, "Sure. What's it about?" And he wanted me to play a paedophile, and I went, "No, I don't think I'm going to be doing that."
No, I don't want to be.
You know,
Yeah, don't even cast as that. Thanks.
no, you're all right. I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things I just wouldn't do. You know. And,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
quite happy with these wee roles because they're fun and you're in and out, and that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it you know, anyone that thinks it's easy, it's not easy. It's a really
Oh no.
these guys, they work their asses off every level. You know,
Yeah.
costume people, makeup people, the hours they put in, the actors are the same. It's even in some ways really hard for the actors, I think, because they have to like pull energy out of themselves at the most tired point in
Oh yeah.
the day. You know, they have to appear energetic and
Sometimes it's like midnight and you're shooting, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
These are the worst ones. I did one TV show where we ended up shooting right through till 6 a.m. and
Oh my god.
I remember thinking, I've had it with this. I'm not doing this again. But
Yeah.
you know, but the night shoots are really, really tough. They're bad. They're hard.
Yeah.
I think of my days at my day job. Yes, everybody have a day job.
Yeah.
That that I may be not feeling it, or I may be depressed or whatever, and I can kind of phone it in. You know, phone it in a day, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
These guys phoning in, it ruins the whole project.
Yeah.
Right.
Like-
Right.
Ruins the whole movie. But I mean, I have to qualify that, you know, that it sounds like a privilege, and it is a privilege. But they pursue this as an art form,
Right.
and so forth. And you know, I can't knock it. I mean, I think I had 2 days on set, and one of them for Wheel of Time, I turned up, got in a costume, was sent back to my trailer, and I was sort of sitting there just like reading. And then they came to me and said, "No, you can get changed again. We're not going to make it tonight. You'll go home. We'll bring you back tomorrow." So I got paid for that, you know. So I mean, can't complain.
Yeah,
but,
right.
You know, so that's fine, and most of it's fine and fun and interesting work and all that. But yeah. So
I can say that we'll bring it all back to Macbeth is where I think it's really interesting that you've combined with what you have going on stage to what you have going on in publication into a project here, right? It's your not interpretation, but what you've seen on stage, and who you know and worked with, and also your art style combining on one project. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird and wonderful kind of folding in of different projects, different interests, and friends popping up. You know, I've got friends in the book. I can see.
Were they pissed on how you drew them? We're like, come on.
They were very accepting. They were very
nice.
I don't know why, because the other thing was I gave myself only a few minutes. Like every page, in fact, every panel, I gave myself a 5-minute window as I worked on the next panel to decide if that previous panel needed work. But if I changed my mind after 5 minutes, it's too late. I wouldn't touch it. So there's loads of things that I would change normally, but I wouldn't touch it. And so there's loads of people that didn't get a very good. Like I did drawings of them that are terrible. You know, they don't do anything. You know, the drawing's okay, but it's not a good likeness. You know,
right. Nothing what they look like. Yeah.
So, but they're very cool about it, and they like it, and so no complaints. And there's something else I was going to say about that when you mentioned the thing of, I worked on Nightfall when I was doing a story for 2000 AD called Defoe, which was written by Pat Mills, and it's a horror story set in London just after the Great Fire, and there was this whole thing with alchemy and gunpowder and gunpowder kegs and stuff. And then at that time, as I was working on that, I got hired to play an alchemist in this thing, Nightfall. So I went up there, and I was actually taking pictures of the barrels and stuff, because it was like, these gunpowder barrels are just exactly what I'm looking for
your art. That's amazing. Yeah.
So I ended up drawing the barrels out and stuff.
That's awesome.
I was gonna say real quick, because I know you've been really generous with your time, and we should probably wrap it up soon. But just as a nerd for the process, the fact that you like set these limits for yourself, almost like 5 minutes.
and you
that
stuck
makes
to
it
them.
so much cooler to me that like
Oh, good.
you were able to create this like good looking book, and it's obviously good enough to be published and everything, but you were setting these arbitrary limits for yourself. Be like, can I do this within this time? I love when creators do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think these limitations they can get fantastic results.
Yes.
You know, you find it most in painting. If you give me colors to paint with, I'll tend to use a lot of color. I love color, but if you work with a limited palette, you produce images that are far more mature. So a way to control that is just to limit your palette, and you end up with more mature looking color choices and stuff. So yeah, limitations they're the most important thing sometimes. But limited budget when you're making a film, or if you're making a project and you've not got much money, finding your way to making it work is vital, you know, on a tight budget. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Limitation breeds
yeah, it breeds innovation.
innovation. Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
I mean, one of the best examples in film was Steven Spielberg when he couldn't get the shark to work.
right.
Couldn't get the shark. The shark broke down, and it was going to cost them a lot of money to like wait for the shark.
Yeah.
And then I think Steven Spielberg had the innovation that, wait a minute, seeing the shark isn't going to be as frightening as seeing yellow barrels being pulled by something.
Right.
So he discovered that whole yellow barrel thing, which becomes this very memorable scene in Jaws.
Yeah.
Only because he couldn't get the machine to work, the actual fish.
That's awesome.
See, I was gonna play into Mike and say Evil Dead, but you went with Jaws, so
Yeah, Evil Dead. Yeah, Evil Dead's another one too. Yep.
Oh, really? An Evil Dead? It's been too
Yeah.
long since I've seen Evil Dead.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, super low budget, shot in
Yeah.
one place, like
Shot in like
that's
in
a
the middle
movie
of the-
bred for innovation. Yeah.
Just you've got Alex Ross behind you. That's actually an Alex Ross Batman.
Yeah,
Yep.
the '60s Batman. Yeah,
Very cool.
I've always had it. I'm a huge '60s Batman fan. So.
I'm a big Batman '66 fan. I love that. I still do.
I watch it every night, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, that's my
clip,
comfort show.
Blowed
Yeah.
up by it. You know, I just think it's just the best.
Yep.
It's for anyone new to the show. That's the birth of the show. Is Mike and I talking Batman '66, the comic shop, back when he was going in college near where I live.
Yep. Yeah, '60s Batman it's always, I don't know, it's always been something for me that it's like, and it still holds up. Like, I might be a little biased here, but I think the jokes hit now. I think that humor is more appreciated nowadays than it was. I mean, it was serious back in the day. That was like the serious Batman, but
yeah,
you know.
Well, you know, when I was a kid, it was already when I was watching it in America as a little boy, it was only maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be watching it. I swear to God, I'd be watching it and I'd be getting into it. And then something would happen and my dad would laugh.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't get it. I didn't know why he was, or my brother. He was like, why would he laugh at that? What was so funny?
This is
and
serious.
I didn't know about the double entendres.
Yeah, right.
The dirty jokes, you know.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many dirty jokes.
Well, listening to Adam West talk about the show, like he fully, I mean, years and years, decades later, it was just like, we were creating a comedy. Like that, it was a comedy the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. So it's.
And you know, they turned up at the Playboy Mansion in costume. I think it was they turned up various things in costume and got up to all sorts of activity that, you know.
That's amazing.
Dude, Adam West was a treasure that was not respected enough in his life until near the end. Yeah,
for sure.
I still think Tim Burton should have cast him in his first Batman. I really.
Oh my God, I would have loved it.
Yeah, just as a cameo, like just
no. I mean,
as Batman.
Batman.
I would
that would have been great.
The Dark Knight Returns via the lens of Batman.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Can you imagine how?
I can't imagine it. I mean, when they think about it. When they cast Michael Keaton at the time, it was Mr. Mom, right? So,
Well, so now you have my wheels spinning as a Batman Beyond fan. Nowadays we talk about Michael Keaton being Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond,
right?
So like 20 years ago, we could have had Adam West as Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It would have been incredible, and it would have been amazing. And I see that. Thinking the world of Michael Keaton. I think he's one of the finest actors. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys ever saw his film Johnny Dangerously, but that was a treasure of mine when I was a teenager. I thought that was fun.
Old school one, yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, and he's just brilliant. He's making another Beetlejuice now.
Yeah, I know. He's doing it all. That's good for him.
Yeah, fantastic.
An
Yeah.
underrated movie he did recently was The Founder.
Oh, is this the McDonald's film?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor. Brilliant. Have you seen his? He does. There's another guy, Kevin Nielsen, comedian. Is it Kevin Nielsen? Does a podcast where he walks up in the Hollywood Hills. There, he walks up somewhere above.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he goes with his pals, comedians and actors and various things. And there's one he does with Michael Keaton. It's a really good one. He's walking along with Michael Keaton and just shooting the shit as he walks.
Oh, really? That's cool.
The hills. Yeah.
You know Kevin Nielsen, Mike. He was in Weeds and
Happy
Happy Gilmore and
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, I know of him. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Stewart, we could talk to you all night, man. I love having you on the show. We got to have you on sooner than it's been a few years. We got to get you back. We got to get you back sooner than that.
Well, we've got the complete edition coming out in a month or two, so
okay,
great. That's the one with the 3D glasses.
So nice.
3D art.
Yeah,
I've done a 3D cover. It's got 6 levels of 3D, and then
oh my god.
And then Clover wrote to me and said, "Do you want to design the actual glasses?" And I was like, "Is that an option?"
Yeah. That's
they
awesome.
They sent me the template, and then so I drew all the freakiest characters and a couple of the agents and stuff on the actual front of the glasses.
Oh
so
man!
When you're wearing the glasses, they're looking out with you.
That's
and then
amazing.
When you turn to the side, it's cinema seats, and they're all sitting in the cinema looking that way.
Oh wow!
Or they're all in the cinema looking that way, and they're all like you. They're all wearing the 3D glasses. All the
That's
agents,
so
3D
cool.
glasses. There's tentacled aliens with 3D glasses.
Oh my god!
So it's a unique sort of thing that they're producing.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I'm really chuffed about that. So
dude, I'm looking at this cover right now, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
If you have 3D glasses like the red, blue, and anaglyph,
yeah,
put them on.
I have a few.
Well, put them on because it works through the computer. It works on.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
you can get the 3D effect. There's 6 levels. She comes out, the dancer comes out, and then you get different. Each of the panels breaks down, and you can go into the distance. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really fun to do and hard to do because you gotta keep putting the glasses on and then cutting and then like taking them off. Trying to arrange the different because you'll have a black and white image and then you reproduce it in cyan and you reproduce it again in magenta and then you can manipulate it and you have to actually play with it to get the sense of depth, and so it takes a long time, and so I was really pleased. I did that one on the cover, and then there's an aliens one inside where they're all the aliens having cocktails and eating pizza.
Yeah,
and then there's another one. I don't know if Clover used it though, because I gave them an option. So just to surprise me, I gave them an optional PDF that had a sort of central 3D page. But I don't know if they used it, and it may have been too late when I submitted that because they had the original PDF at that point. It wasn't 3D in the middle at that point. But anyway, there's a bunch of 3D stuff inside too. So yeah,
that's awesome. I'm looking at the cover now. Yeah, so that's available on Clover Press's website as well. Yeah. And for $10 off, you can get it for $50 right now. So and head to the Clover Press website. And Stewart, I know we're gonna send everybody to the website for the books, but if people want to follow you and all the fantastic stuff you're doing, I know you talked maybe about opening a shop for yourself or something, but where can we send everybody?
Well, right now, Buddha von Budstein on Instagram. Okay. And I'm also Opipop, OPIPOP on Twitter.
Yep.
And I've sort of built a new website, but I haven't loaded it yet, so it's not really online yet. I don't really know what to be called, but it'll be listed on these things. So the Instagram one is Buddha von Budstein. And then you can find me through Clover, and you can find me through Twitter with OPIPOP.
Great.
There's other things, but I don't remember how to do the TikTok. I've been messing about with the TikTok. But
yeah, I don't get it either.
It's too much.
Too much.
So make sure to go follow Stewart on social media so you can look forward to a possible website with possibly cool things for sale in the near future.
Maybe.
But also, as always, I'll have links in the show notes down below so you can get Macbeth straight from Cloverfield or from Clover Press. Cloverfield. I wanted a giant monster. We were talking about Godzilla earlier. Giant monsters.
Yeah.
So you can get them from Clover Press, and I also have the preview page for Project MK Ultra. Stuart, thanks so much for taking the time, man. It's been a blast.
Thank you
and
so
like
much.
Mike said, we got to do it again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a blast. It's always fun. So, yeah. So all the best to you.